Ta-ta. All right, 9. Good morning, everyone. Morning. Monday, 9 a.m. and you're here. Yeah. Great students. Awesome, seriously. Anything new on the weekend? Any new activity you got to do this weekend? Kind of like same old, same old. I like that. That's my way, typically, but you know, it's good. All righty. So we're gonna keep going with the chapter 3. Hopefully you get to see the recorded lecture for the you know, as a sub for the Monday class that I had to cancel. Sorry about that again. So hopefully you get to do that, but if not, I hope that you can watch the recorded chapter as soon as possible. So you know, those things are still a bit sequenced, so it's better to catch up earlier than later. Anyway, just a reminder, January 25th, Wednesday, right? Yeah. Close to midnight is the deadline for the critical chapter reflection. You can choose either chapter 3 or 4 to write about it. There's a guideline, rubric, and sample. But if you had any questions, I wanted to answer that right now. just to get a sense. Did anybody kind of started to think about it, do it even? Cool. All right. Well, you know, well, we have a Wednesday class, but more importantly, if you have any questions, just let me know by email. I should be able to answer that right away. Sounds good? All right. This one is attached to the points, just so you know. All right. So there were a few things I wanted to do from the previous classes, as in the Friday in-person class, the other one is the video recording. So there are some activities that we covered in those classes. So I wanted to do that today because, well, we didn't have a lot of time on Friday. So toward the end of the Friday class, what we're talking about different groups of definitions of leisure and how we, quote unquote, operationalize leisure in different studies too. 4 types, depending on the type of leisure phenomena we focus on, objective side or subjective side, versus definitional vantage point. Who gets to decide what's leisure? Researcher, external, or the participants, internal. So 2 by 2, 4 types. I don't care. Once again, you don't have to remember each of these names over here. But if I give you an example like this, I want you to be able to identify this is, for example, internal vantage point, and they're subjective or objective, and tell me why. Or if you give you the opposite, like, okay, internal vantage point with objective phenomena, can you give me an example? Research. Make sense? So let's do this. I have this research. Now, based on that model that we just saw, which one potentially single or multiple perspective, you know, definitions of leisure am I using? Hopefully you got some thought about it. If you haven't, that's fine. Think about it. You can talk to your neighbor if you want her to double check your answers. And I'm gonna hear. I'll give you 30 seconds or so. You can talk. You can talk. You can talk. What do you think? So let's stick to one first, right? The subjective and objective, let's go with. Go back to the question. Yeah, so which side of leisure am I looking at? Subjective side or objective side? Sorry? Objective where? Which part of the thing? The survey also lists different leisure activities. I agree, because it's a leisure activity as activity participations and whatnot, right? But is that only the type of leisure am I interested in? What else? Go up a little bit. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah. What would you call that? Is that a objective or subjective? Feelings. Yeah. So am I looking at both? What about the vantage point? So what do we got? Subjective external. Interesting. And that's it. That's it. One. What do you think, Elena? Subjective internal. Anything else? Anything else? That all? Did somebody call my name? No? All right. Okay. So what do you think? What do you think? Which one is it? Which one is it? This one? Right? Okay. So let's go by poll. Let's go by show of hands. Raise your hand if you think there's a objective external vantage point, as in objective side of leisure, and researcher gets to decide. Raise your hand if you think that applies here. Yeah, there's like 5, 6 people. I said objective external, right? Yeah. Next. Raise your hand if you think we have objective internal, as in participant gets to decide. Okay. Quite a bit. Raise your hand if you think we have subjective external, subjective but decided by researcher. Raise your hand if you think we have subjective internal. Good. Now, in terms of answer, subjective internal, a lot of you guys identified. It's right there. Yes. Which part specifically? I might ask that. Which part? Which sentence? This part, right? The end. Yes. Focus on your experiences and feelings. And I'm asking you to define what leisure is. So that's internal vantage point. And this part of the survey is about subjective side of leisure. So it's a subjective / internal. Good. Now that second part, this second part is a tricky part, isn't it? So the survey also listed different leisure activities. So activity participation is the, according to the previous lecture, it's on the objective side. So that's objective, we got that right. It was basically, who chose this? Me, yes, the researcher, me. So I got to choose. You are just seeing the list of predetermined activities. You didn't have any say in terms of like what activity gets in or gets out. Therefore, it's objective external, this second part. Sounds good? Any questions? Any questions? That was good. We did that practice. Now, in the video lecture, we were talking about experiments, and then 5 principles experiments is right here. Very important. And top 2 are specific or especially important. Random assignments of the causal or independent variable. Typically, it's the group, right? There's a maybe new treatment, new recreation therapy treatment, and then the other one is traditional or even nothing else, right? Placebo or control group. And we have to randomly assign people according to the lecture, and manipulation of the extraneous factors. So we basically keep everything else, every other alternative explanation, possible causes constant, same across the groups, so that they cannot be the alternative reasons. We want to pinpoint that this guy whatever that independent variable, causal variable we assign is the reason why any changes we observe. Now, this one is difficult. I don't know if you got to do, if you had some time to do work on this, but let's work on this. Okay. No shame, nothing, no judgment. How many of you have got to do this a little bit? This activity? Good? Okay. So then that's good. Pretty much we're good. Okay, so let's take a time. We're going to take 2, 3, 4 minutes. Does anybody need a little more refresher on the 5 principles so that you can work better on the activity? Raise your hand if you feel like it. Okay, I will do that a little more. Okay, so those are the, I talked about first two principles, but take a step back. Experimental method is the type of method that we can use to really the strongest method to support the causality, that A causes B. Okay, and that's very important, different from other methods, because when we do survey, when we do quote unquote statistics and correlation, what we know is that they're related. A and B, for example, let's say exercise and mental health. We know that they're related to each other. One goes up, the other one goes up, or one goes up, the other one goes down. Both are correlation. The catch here is that we don't know whether A caused B or B caused A. Does that make sense? A impacted B or B impacted A. We don't know. For example, it's possible that exercise improved our mental health. That's possible. But it's also possible that the people with the better mental health tend to do more exercise, right? It's quite possible. But if we do experiments, and let's say at the very top random assignment, we think that exercise is the cause, and we're interested in the degree of the effect that exercise have on the mental health, then we, and especially this new exercise, regimen, the new exercise schedule, and how effective it is for mental health, let's say, right? So we basically quote unquote prescribe that whatever the thing, schedule and dose and whatever for the treatment group, and then the other group gets to do nothing, maybe actually literally nothing, or maybe traditional exercise, whatever. Okay, and then after a certain time, we observe, and we want to measure mental health, the effect, outcome we're expecting, and hoping that treatment group will report better mental health, right? In this case, that's what we're trying to do. And at the very beginning, the group assignment has to be random. Why? People who are participating in a research cannot get to choose, like, oh, I want to go to that new treatment exercise group, or I want to go to the placebo group. That's very weird. I want to go to the placebo group, but we cannot choose. We cannot let them choose it. Why? What do you think? Bias? Tell me a little more. What kind of bias? So we don't know what kind of biases that they're bringing in. Possible? Yes, Adam? So it's a placebo, basically placebo effect, but the people who have a stronger belief in like that's going to help, they're going to get more help. Okay, cool. What kind of people would, let's say there's like, let's forget about leisure for a second. Let's think about like really like a cancer treatment, right? And then there's like cutting edge new treatment of cancer treatment. What kind of people, and it's but unknown, the side effect is unknown, how effective it is unknown, so much is unknown because it's a new technique, right? What kind of people would choose that within the cancer survivor group? If we let them choose, what kind of people would choose that cutting edge new unknown technique?
People who, terminal people who don't have a
terminal people who feel that they don't have a lot to go on, right? People who are quote unquote desperate to anything that works for them because they probably tried a lot of things and they didn't work out for them, right? So that if we let people, we let people choose, there will be, like Diane's saying too, like there will be some systematic biases. The people within a certain situation, certain condition, with a certain characteristics will choose one group or the other. So that the baseline, they're not going to be comparable. So by randomly assigning, we can assume that the baseline is, all the things, all the differences will be canceled out by chance, basically. Okay, it's not 100%, but it should work statistically speaking over time across many cases. It's very important because otherwise we don't know if we observe some effect, but the treatment group was really sick people, for example, then that masked the change, effectiveness of treatment. Now, manipulation of extraneous factors is very important too. For example, going back to the exercise and mental health example, if we do not control their, let's say, the experiment runs for 1 week, right? If we do not control their daily exercise, like except the, beyond the experiments, right? Beyond the research, we do not control the type of activity that they're doing in a daily life. What's going to happen is that potentially the treatment group with the new technique, new exercise, they may do great things in research, but they may be basically, sorry, quote unquote, a culture potato outside of research. But the control group may be actually quite active outside. And that could impact, right? That could be alternative reasons. So we have to control that thing, control any other possible explanations. And then we have to measure the result outcome, like mental health, for example. We need a reasonable theory to explain, but we don't have to worry about that for now for this exercise. And then we have to have a reasonable time lapse because, for example, you don't expect cancer to disappear, whatever the technique, maybe after like one session or something. You don't probably. If it happened, probably there's something else happening, not the treatment itself. Mental health isn't gonna make it, gonna be better probably after like 1 minute of exercise. Probably not, right? So there has to be some reasonable time lapse. Anyway, so that's the principles. Now, here you go. I want to conduct a lab experiment in a room. Specifically, I'm interested in learning how a sense of competence, how good you think you are, you think you are, yeah, about the activity. And relatedness, how connected you think you are with other people, can impact children's, let's say, enjoyment. Satisfaction is children get satisfied, I don't know, but they enjoy stuff. So their enjoyment of play, certain play activity. I have a room, I have some equipment like games and toys and whatnot, gadgets and research team, and there's some money if you need a little more things, but not $1 million for sure, unfortunately. So how do you design an experiment? If you watch even video recording, you realize that actually some of the lab experiment, we use that quote unquote deception sometimes at the very beginning. So that the real purpose of the research is not shown. But that's important for the scientific purposes. That's fine because we're going to debrief it later. We can't, we cannot poke kids with the needle. No, it's very difficult. I mean, we could, but it's pretty difficult. But how are you going to design experiment like this? So that we know whether competence and relatedness impact kids' play enjoyment. You need a team for this. It's a pretty difficult question to answer. So you need a team, you need a group. You can divide and conquer. You can bring different ideas. I'll give you a couple minutes to work on. This one is tough. Be creative. Use your life experiences. If you maybe ever worked as a nanny, that's a very good experience because you have experiences with the kids. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. For example, for the competence, what this means is that we have to make a two group of kids, let's say, in a simplest term. One group, kids feel good. Kids feel competent about the activity. The other group, kids feel not competent, or they were, controlled. They got nothing. They got nothing special. But there should be a group where, one group, kids systematically should feel more competent about the activity. And then, but we cannot make the activity itself different between the group. Make sense? Why would that be? We cannot make the activity different. We cannot give an easy activity for one group because then that difference in activities will be the violation of the second principle, extraneous factor. It's possible that beyond the competence, the kids enjoy the easier activity, right? So the activity type can be the alternative reasons why, not the competence, but different activity can be the reason why kids enjoy that one. So it compromises experiments. So the activity has to be the same, but the one group of kids feel better, feel more confident. They don't have to be actually competent. That's the catch. It's the feeling of competence. Does that make sense? Is that enough things to get going? Okay, let's go. Yes, look.
Is like choosing to have a group that's competent on the activity, would that be making them the placebo group or the treatment?
Yeah, basically it's like that. It's like that. Yeah, basically let's say there's gonna be two groups, right? 30 kids gonna be randomly assigned to either or. One group is gonna be placebo. Well, between the two groups, same activity, same play. But one group is a placebo, so they get nothing. They get no special treatment whatsoever. But the treatment group we should do something special so that they feel more competent about what they're doing. Make sense? Or it could be less, but has to be same activity. That's a tricky one.
So is the example of treatment versus placebo groups, is that just an example of what you think you can do?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It could be, typically placebo means actually nothing, right? Placebo means literally medicine with emptiness, right? But sometimes we do like new technology, new treatment versus traditional treatment. So it's technically not placebo. There's something going on too. The control and reference group is. So there's different kind of group comparison we can do. But yes, for now. Ooh, now this is something little tricky one. What's your idea? Discuss, please. I know you guys fine. Just keep going. What do you think?
Say maybe we could do an experiment. We had soccer games. We had one team of kids played soccer before they know the game, and then a group of kids who've never played before. You could compare them. So maybe the teams they have confidence in each
I can see how that impacted confidence. But what's your name again? Sorry, Jake. Go back to random assignment. If we get 30 kids and divide it into two groups, let's say, right? We have to randomly divide the group. So we can't selectively choose kids with the soccer experiences into one group. We could, but then that would also be another reasons like, extraneous factors so that the past experience may be impacting their enjoyment. So that, people with the past experience tend to enjoy the activity kind of thing. So good thinking. Now, what do we do? What do we do with that problem? Now we head on to the next problem. Good. Discuss, please. We got a good idea here?
Yeah. So
What do you think?
we're talking about like Lego to see whether or not
Awesome.
they're like confident enough to do it a little bit, and then if they decide it's like easier or harder based on the second group, then they could go in the easier group or the harder group, and then go on from there and do one bigger, better, harder Lego thing to make.
Like, would you start with all of the kids, and then you can ask them how they felt about the activity, and then there you placing groups.
Then you put them in the easier group. If you feel comfortable, then they can move on to the next group. Do a harder thing.
That's creative. Now, that's creative. Now. The problem becomes, basically, we're going to be measuring at the end of the second group, right?
Yeah.
After the kids divided into like two groups. Now, the group assignment itself is, in that sense, is not random anymore. It's based on, it's not arbitrary. We're not letting kids choose it purely, right? But it's determined by another factor, except the random chance, which is how competent kids are with the Lego. So now what we don't know is that, for example, how good kids are with the Lego may be related to other factors like motor control, the cognitive development, other things, which may enjoy their enjoyment as well. Like with the different reasons, not necessarily how, competent they feel about the Lego per se. I like where you're going. It's very, but once again, you try to work on a one principle, and then we sometimes violate the other principle. Like this is a kind of classic example of that too. So we have to randomly make the game. Basically the assumption is that we have to divide the kids randomly into two groups. That's that. And those kids will be mixed bag of kids who are good at the Lego and then not good at the Lego. But we have to somehow make one group feel that they're good with the Lego. How do you do? But then then you kind of step into this second principle issues.
But they don't know that.
They don't know that. But objectively speaking, if we are actually tweaking one activity is more easier, for example, easier, then it's not how competent they feel. That's the factor that impacting enjoyment of the activity, but it may be the easiness or the different activity, the different things that they're making. Because I'm assuming that kids are making different things, right?
Yeah.
Castle versus something animal, like simple animals. Maybe kids like the animal. We don't know. That's why they enjoyed it. That's not quite about the competence. It has to be, if that's a castle, if kids are making castle, it has to be the same castle. But one group has to feel that they're better, they're good. They feel like they're doing great job. The other group, we don't provide anything. We don't have to. Nothing. Did everybody get to work on the competence part? Does everybody have some idea around here? Competence. It becomes like competition of who can deceive kids better. No, sorry, but does anybody have some idea? So that I think we can, work on the relatedness side, which is actually even more tough, maybe. More, you have to be creative. How can we make one group of kids feel more competent? Any ideas? Yes, Maddie.
Or like leave them a little bit to begin with, so then they feel more confident when they're doing it, like just let the other group not know what they're doing. So then they're like, oh, like I don't know how to do this, but the other group already kind of has a kind of confidence, so that makes them bottom line.
So that's before they're actually work on the activity, the task. So they have to make whatever castles or spaceship or whatever with the play or we're just talking about Lego. Sorry, my mind is in a Lego. So let's say Lego, but we provided just a little bit. Hey, this is how you go about it. Just how you play with the Lego and just how the entire spaceship or whatever look like, so that they have some better direction. They're going to be better at. I can see that. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Now, we can still critique that idea. No, this is very good actually for the first time, but we can still talk about the reason why is that then one group is having that interaction with someone, like for example, Maddie. So Maddie, maybe kids enjoy the interaction with the Maddie so much. It wasn't really Lego that, or how good they were with the Lego that they enjoyed, but they enjoy that, kind of like mentorship and interaction with their, instructor. So that means you actually have to see and talk to the other group as well. However, you don't have to provide that technical support and aid for the Lego activity itself. Does that make sense? You have to be present. You have to make the environment as same as possible. You have to pray with the both group of kids. One group of kids, you provide a little more guidance and tips and heads up so that they will probably do better with the Lego and feel better about their skill. The other group, you just there, have fun, chit chat, great weather, talk about those stuff, but enjoy. Same thing, right? So that we keep that interaction constant, but the feedback is different. Okay, good. Anything else? That's actually one of the classic ways to go about competence. Yes.
Like one group keeps like hang out with them, piece of a chit chat.
Mhm.
The other group would be like, oh, good job, like keep going, that's awesome, like you're doing really well. Like kids really like take that feedback well, so increases their sense of confidence, even if they're not doing well.
So not the before, not the front rolling and before in preparation, after some activity, some feedback, basically, immediate feedback that the research, Jasmine is now the research assistant who is present in the both room, but only one group, Jasmine would provide some feedback about how good they're doing so that they get that message. Oh, I'm doing good. I'm the Lego guru. Yes, I like that. But you have to interact with the other kids too, but you don't provide that kind of feedback. Joshua.
Could a sense of deception work? So like one group would receive a positive, realistic feedback according to the game they're playing. And the second group would receive just purely negative.
By game, what do you mean?
So like if there was a game, like a reflex game on the wall that
Uh-huh.
would shine a light, so the kids would play as a team.
You know what Joshua talking about? One of those, like, there's a buttons and lights up and then you touch kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like as a group of kids could play like, oh, go there. So
Uh-huh.
that increase the relatedness, right?
Oh,
Then-
you're talking about related.
Yeah,
Okay.
but then one group could be receiving positive feedback.
Okay.
And if they actually get it, they get like a green light, but then the other group could get just purely red lights to
Red-
diminish their sense of competence.
Red here means that they failed or,
Yeah.
okay.
How could it- that is-
I like what you're saying. Now, do you understand what he's trying to say? So kids can do this and one group of kids get like basically automatically green, right? Or systematically more green, like
Yeah.
whether they fail or not. So that they feel like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
doing good with this activity versus the other kids will just get a bunch of red, which is like, basically.
Yeah, kind
No?
of with some like with the red group with occasional greens.
Occasional green, so that it doesn't look unrealistic. Okay. Everybody goes like, no, we can't do that with the kids. But we could. No, we could actually. Well, we have to debrief them very well, okay? Because kids can get traumatized seriously. Well, we do that. We need a consent with the parents and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure the researchers out there have done it. I'm pretty sure. Now, I like the Joshua's idea about quote unquote gaming. Can we take more? Now, this was physical gaming.
Yeah.
Can we take this one more to the virtual side? Would that make things more even easier? Like one of those games. Huh? Like it's like a game. It's like a Super Mario, which is very old, but sorry. But it's a different level. One is like a level 100, so very difficult. And the other one is like a level 2, so it's very easy. But then that could introduce different, not just how competent they felt, but also different challenges potentially. Well, we could keep everything else like characters and stories same, but different challenges leads to, some kids may enjoy challenge. Some kids may actually don't like just challenge. So that could be a factor too. But we can do the same thing, but for example, and then kids can play the same, let's say shooting game, right? Simple shooting game. Like it just like, not the like not the war, not the code of war, but it's like, I'm thinking about this, the one of those like a spaceship and just you know what I'm talking about? Sorry. Then you get the score. But after that, your score will be compared like a scoreboard, right? One group of kids, you don't see your name. Like your score is like, and you see a lot of other people's score who are much better than you. The other group, you see your score is pretty high in a ranking. Exactly same game, that feedback, and it's like a feedback, Jasmine's idea, but it's done by the machine. Can do that too. I know it's a terrible idea, but we could do that. Did anybody get to talk about the relatedness? How can we manipulate the relatedness? One group of kids have to feel more connected with other. Yes, Luke. Okay. Oh, you're so talking about the relatedness with the game, with the activity. Okay, so that's a one actually type of relatedness, but let's focus on the relatedness with the other people, with the other people. So kids can play certain things with other kids or some other people potentially in an environment where other people are present. Maybe you as a research assistant or other kids or whatever. One group, in one group, kids are systematically feeling more related to other people. Another group, the other group, no. Curtis.
The only thing I thought of was in one group, you don't really have like a sense of competition when doing an activity. It's
Mhm.
just you do it
Mhm.
and have fun. But with the other group, you say this group got this score and you beat it. And if you do, you will get a prize. And then if they feel a sense of competition, they'll be more feeling to work together.
Interesting. There's this theories and there's a similar experiments. Actually, I know actually the chapter talk about that too in outdoor camping context. Now it's good idea. Now, so now you're introducing relatedness potentially too. Differences in relatedness, but at the same time, you are introducing another factor, which is a different level of competition, perceived competition. So we don't know whether it was the competition that made a change or the relatedness that made a change. It's a confounding factor. So we go back to like basically the second principle. We're kind of like flipping into this side. So you see, like this is very important, and this is one of the things that I discussed in a video recording chapter lecture 2, that creating the experiment that specifically tests what you really want to test, while controlling everything else, is very, very difficult task. It's very creative approach, creative activity. Now, what else can we do to make kids feel more connected to other people or not? Lena.
The high related group, so that they would really similar to the other group. The low related group, so that they would really different. And then the other control group works on anything about.
So the activity itself is individual activity.
Yeah, so we said we have to build a Lego model.
Uh-huh.
Same model, same piece of Lego.
Same Lego, same thing they're making.
Yeah, and then the competence was when they were told that they did either really well, really badly, or
Feedback, good or
just
bad.
know nothing about
Okay.
performance. And then the relatedness was whether they did really similar to everyone else or differently to everyone else or nothing.
If they did similar to others or not similar to others, and that way they feel like maybe we can create like a special room where kids meet 5 kids, like the 3 kids together from one group will meet each other, and then they divide it into individual spaces so that they know the other kids are working together, working parallel, so that they're like, oh, I get to, do similarly with the other kids. The other 2 kids I just saw, so that maybe with that feedback will kick in a little more strongly than just like randomly, like with the stranger kids, like, oh, hypothetically, the kids you never even met, like, oh, what do I mean, like similar to, but oh yeah, the kids that I just saw, I did similarly good, feel related. I can see that. And that's good. By using individual activity, actually participation, you're controlling a lot of stuff. Yeah. The second principle. Yes.
Color to stimulate sense of feeling. Like
Ooh.
this and this one, we're just thinking of red. This one of
Sorry, what's your name again?
yeah.
Yang was talking about changing a little bit of room environment, like the colors of a room to facilitate interaction, social relatedness kind of thing. Now, it could be an interesting approach, but then you're not keeping the extraneous factors same. You're introducing a different room color. And maybe like green can calm kids more, and then they may enjoy in that environment activity better. Red can agitate kids and they may not enjoy the activity more. We don't know. The point is we're introducing another factor. So that's a trait. Yes, last one.
like make the conscious all do something together. But another group is like, oh, you guys are playing games.
Yeah.
Like doing something like funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What if the other group also ended up praying together? Because we're providing the same activity, right? Yeah. So that's a treatment group. What if I'm saying that the other group, control group, ended up without any message, they ended up working together. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. It could still make some differences, systematic differences, but it's possible, especially because the activity is the same, right? The group environment should be the same. If it's 5 kids in the same room or 3 kids per room, that has to be the same between the groups too. So naturally, kids can just ended up praying together too, to an extent. Any last idea, Teresa?
If they have like the 2 groups, the same activity, but in one of the groups you ask for like participants to bring a friend. So you guys in your activity groups for kids who already know each other. That might bring in
The other group, so the one group is bringing a friend. The other group, so let's say pair, right? Friend. The other group, are they individually praying or are they also praying with somebody else? Because that could be extraneous factor to an extent too.
I think they do the same activity, but they're just more related on it. I guess that would
Now let me use that. I like that idea. Let me use that. We could, and then I'll go all in on this. We could have a research assistant who is small, like young too, or it could be you too, your age group too. But let's say, well, yeah, you could be like Teresa. You could be a research assistant. Let's work together. You will work together with each of the kids, right? But in one group and the same activity, and you may do some just non-related chit chat kind of conversation, whatever, right? In one group, you're nothing more than that. You just pray together. The other group, you will actively ask, like, okay, what's your name? And where are you coming from? That kind of thing, so that you create certain level of the connection. You share who you are, that they feel connected to you too. Oh, like you like this, I like this, that type of basic questions. Now the catch is in this way, but they think that kids may think that you're also another research participant. If you're kids, it's better, but you know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's constant. Teresa, you're the constant, you're same between the 2 groups. You're creating more sense of, arguably more sense of connection, the other group, one group, than the other group. In the past, in our actual research, we have had confederates, as in like research participants who are pretending to be the participants. So let's say this is not about kids. Let's say this is about university students. I get 5 of you in the same group, right? To do some certain activity. But actually only Isaiah, you're the real research participants. 4 of you are actually working with me. But Isaiah doesn't know that. One group, you kind of work together with the real research participants so that there's a better connection, better sense of relatedness. The other group, you guys are like, don't talk to me, like just like, and see how, but the same activity and everything is the same. It's weird. It takes a lot of time, but that's a way to sometimes manipulate those situations. Any questions? We were just talking about before the class how midterm 1 is creeping up on us. I could easily ask this. All right, so now moving on to the survey, we're talking about surveys in the recorded lecture. Survey is typically about external vantage point. We choose predetermined activity, right? Like list of activities that we just talked about at the beginning of this class. I chose certain activity. You report how frequently participated in the activity. But chapter talked about some recent experiments with the survey where internal vantage point is introduced. And one of my colleagues, Eiichi Ito from Japan, what he developed is what's called a leisure 10 statement test. Name is not important, but what it does is important. It lists basically its simplest thing, leisure and blank, 10 times or 5 times, how many ever you want it. leisure blank, leisure blank. And I ask everybody, each of you, survey respondents, to define, provide a sentence, a word or phrase, not a drawing, but something to define, to provide, represent your definition of leisure. So some of you say leisure is free time. Simple. Leisure happens when, whatever. When I am not studying, something like that. You can define whatever way. So you can see this is an internal vantage point. We're listening to people's definition. We have used cross-culturally in the different countries, compare people's definitions of leisure. Now here's his finding. So what he did was that, well, this one is with the U of A students. Had a 10 leisure definition from hundreds or so students. And it quoted those quote unquote qualitative data. So it's written text words. So we quoted them and he identified several patterns based on the definitions of leisure we just saw. Objective side, leisure is a free time. It was quite popular actually, about 14%. Leisure as setting and place was mentioned about 2%. It's like leisure happens in a mountain, something like that, People also mentioned activity quite a bit of too, about 19% together. And he identified several subcategories like active activity, like sports, exercising, those kind of things, social, and also passive, which is interesting because passive activity, like watching TV, is 1.1%, very small fraction. Although watching TV is one of the most common leisure recreation activity. So people don't really define leisure based off of that. And on the right side, you see the entire list of subjective side of leisure. So people do define, and these are not the students who took like RLS 100, just quote unquote normal students in terms of leisure studies. They still define leisure in terms of emotion, thinking, certain kind of thinking, arousal, excited, relaxed. This one is not really subjective, but anyway, freedom, intrinsic motivation as well. So subjective side, very important. But this was actually a simple way to get the internal vantage point meanings of leisure. Now, this can be very easily changed in a different context, right? Let's say you ended up working on camp, youth camp, and you want to know what camp means for them, for the participants or for their parents or whatever. What is camp for you? So that you really can capitalize, use that information for marketing purposes, programming purposes. You can just swap that leisure into camp or youth camp and let them define. Yeah, I'm gonna stop here. Sorry, we get carried out. Well, anyway, the experiment type, activity about experiment is important. Make sure you get to do that. You can make a hypothetical, like a different practice activity for yourself. Instead of like competence, what about choice? How does sense of choice impact children's play experience, enjoyment? We have to use the same activity, same room, same everything, but one group of kids will feel the sense of choice. The other group do not. How do we manipulate that? I will see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but you know what I mean. No, Wednesday. Oh my God, my brain. Monday brain. Gosh, sorry.